الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه الطيبين الطاهرين ومن اتبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا اللهم ذكرنا ما نسينا وعلمنا ما جهلنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من حالة النار لله تعالى. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and protect the Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe, and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whatever attributes and attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah. And His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn. And He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending the session of Islamic knowledge, because having a sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get a reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah that we have been guided to Islam, because Islam is the only true religion, it is the only accepted religion, it is the only valid religion. And we are grateful to Allah that we have access to the knowledge of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, which is the saved group. So in order for the individual to be following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he has to be part of the saved group that is called Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah. This group is saved because they are the ones who follow the information that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed to the companions, and then the companions conveyed it to the followers of the companions, and then the followers of the companions, they conveyed it to the followers of the followers until reaching us. So there's no way for an individual to implement al-Islam, to abide by al-Islam, except with that knowledge. And that knowledge comes through Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah, and so they are the saved group. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah for that. And the reason we say that is because nowadays there are many people that they claim to be Muslim, and they claim that they're following Islam, but instead what they are following is their own opinions, things that they themselves made up. They're following what they thought is correct or what they interpreted, and we're not like the Christians that they don't really follow Prophet Jesus alayhi salam. They just say, oh, we love Jesus, and they do whatever they want, and they interpret their religion however they want. They don't abide by any laws. They just say, love Jesus, and Jesus will love you, and all these things, and they commit sins left and right. They practice pagan practices left and right. They don't do things that Jesus would do. So it's just fake, basically. It's just pretending to be followers of Prophet Jesus. So in Islam, we don't have that. In Islam, what we have is following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Either you're following him or you're astray. So the one who does not follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this person, he is obviously misguided. Because why? Because the only way for the person to be guided is to follow the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we're going to continue on with our subject matter, collections of goodness, which are lessons that were written and transcribed and documented from the great scholar of hadith and fundamentals, the Shaykh Abdullah rahimahullah, and he passed away in the year 2008. We are on we're on lesson 53. We got to page 267, where we're talking about the creed of the righteous, or how the righteous Muslim becomes righteous. We talked about Prophet Sulaiman and how he had control over the jinn, and how where he would pray in his prayer place, he would there would be like a tree or something that grows there, and then he would ask you, what were you created for? And then that plant or tree would say, I was created for this and that. And so then one time what happened is that it grew there, and he asked it, what were you created for? And it said, for the destruction of this house. And so that meant that the death of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam was close. And so Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, he asked Allah that the jinn would not be able to know, or that the jinn would not be aware that Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam had died. That they would be clueless about it. And so it happened like that because those jinn, they used to claim that they're the ones who commanded Prophet Sulaiman, and that they didn't have to do the tasks that he ordered them to do. So to expose their lie, this is how they were exposed. Prophet Sulaiman died standing up, leaning against his staff, and for a whole entire year he stayed in that position. And those jinn that were ordered to do the hard labor, they kept on doing their tasks out of fear of being punished because they didn't know that he died. Until there was an insect, the termite, that ate through the wood of the staff of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, weakening the staff, and so the body of Prophet Sulaiman fell over and he landed on his right side. And so those jinn, they were so happy for that insect that they began to help it and bring it water. So basically the Shaykh rahimahullah, he mentioned that, so he would clarify that sudden death does not necessarily mean that the person who died suddenly was not accepted by Allah. So sudden death is not an indication of having a bad status, because both Prophet Dawood and Prophet Sulaiman, they died sudden deaths. So we're going to continue on reading collections of goodness. We're on page 267, last paragraph. The author, rahimahullah, said, furthermore, the righteous Muslim only became a righteous Muslim wali because he learned the knowledge of the creed and the rules according to the school of Ahlul Sunnah. He believed the creed of Ahlul Sunnah, which the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were upon, and those who followed them in a chain until this time. As for the one who did not learn the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah, no matter how many acts of worship he does, no matter how much effort he puts into the deeds, he will not become righteous. No matter how much he maximizes saying dhikr and reciting Quran and performing hajj and giving charity, he will not become a wali. So here the Shaykh rahimahullah is telling us that if the person does not have the correct creed, no matter how many acts he does, outward acts, of obedience, he won't get any reward from those things. Because in order for the Muslim, or in order for the individual to receive reward for any of the good deeds that he does, he has to be a Muslim, and he has to have the correct creed. Page 267, this is why the most important matters of the religion is the creed of Ahlul Sunnah. And it is having the proper belief in Allah, knowing what befits to be attributed to Allah, and clearing Him from all what does not befit to be attributed to Him, and having the proper belief in His Messenger. This is the basis of the creed of the Muslim. Allah existed eternally and nothing else existed eternally with Him. Before Allah created the universe, there was no place and no direction. There were no 6 directions, up, down, right, left, in front of and behind. They did not exist. There was no light and no darkness. Allah exists. He has no beginning to His existence. Everything other than Allah, all of it, did not exist, and then it began to exist. Allah created it. And so as Muslims, we should double down and triple down and stand firm on this rhetoric. It is unstoppable, undeniable. Any person that has an objective mindset, they have to agree. If they choose not to agree, it would just be stubbornness and their whims and their desires. It won't be because of any objective grounds. It won't be because of anything that has to do with evidence. It would just has to do with them not wanting. So, and this is something that even the opponent has to agree to. So even the atheist has to agree to it. Even the person who claims to be Muslim, the Wahhabi, has to agree to it. The person who denies the Hadith, every single person that tries to oppose the creed of Ahlul Sunnah, they cannot get around this issue, which is that only Allah has no beginning. Only Allah, He did not enter into existence. Only Allah is the one that always existed. The creations, the universe, they all have a beginning. So what does that mean? If something has a beginning, then what does it mean? It means that before it existed, it was nothing. So that's what it means. It doesn't mean that it had some other state of existence that it was just in that state waiting and pending until then it now becomes, let's say, a chair, or now it becomes a tree, or now it becomes this, or now it becomes that. No. It's before that thing existed, it was nothing. And its existence was done to it. It was entered into existence. It was given its existence. So that applies to everything other than Allah. It does not apply to Allah that His existence was given. Rather, His existence is His, and without a beginning. It's an attribute of His reality. So everything other than Him has a beginning. What is other than Allah? Time. Time is not Allah. What is other than Allah? The directions. The directions are not Allah. What is other than Allah? Light. Light is not Allah. What is other than Allah? Darkness. Darkness is not Allah. What is other than Allah? Shapes, sizes, colors, emotions. All these things are other than Allah. Yani they are not Allah. So that means they have a beginning. So that means Allah is not attributed with any of those things. That means those things do not apply to Allah. It's a very simple creed, very easy creed. But the corruption of the heart, the misguidance, the ego, the nafs, the pride, the arrogance, the stubbornness, all those things will get in the way. But the one who wants to follow the truth, that one, when he sees the evidence, when he knows the evidence, he will submit to it. The first thing that Allah created is the original water and the throne. Then some time passed without any light, darkness, night or day. After some time, Allah created the night and the day. He created the darkness first before the light. Then Allah created the universe in two kinds, an entity and the attribute of the entity. The entity is either palpable or impalpable. Light, wind, darkness, and the soul. Those are impalpable bodies. They are not grasped with the hand. So when we say impalpable, we're referring to something that you cannot grab with your hand. See right now, you can grab this with your hand. You can grab a person with your hand. You can grab a tree. You can grab a stone. You can grab this. You can hold this in your hand. That's palpable. The impalpable, you cannot grab it with your hand. Whatever is impalpable cannot be grasped with the hand. The other type of entity is what is grasped with the hand, like the human, the stone, the tree, the star, the sun, and the moon. All of those are entities that are grasped with the hand. Before Allah created the universe, there were no impalpable bodies nor palpable bodies. Then Allah made attributes for the impalpable and palpable bodies. The impalpable bodies and the palpable bodies have a measure, and it is either something small or something big or something in between small and big. The smallest body that Allah created among what the eyes can see is that which is called al-haba. The particle that is seen in the sunlight when it comes through the window, it is like dust. The biggest volume that Allah created in size is the throne. It is like a bed that has 4 pillars. Allah is not attributed with a large size nor with a small size, because if he had a size, he would have had similars among the creations. And this is why Allah is not a small size nor a large size. Allah is also clear from being attributed with the attributes of volumes. What are the attributes of the bodies? Movement and stillness. The body is either still or moving, and either moving sometimes and still other times. The throne and the 7 skies are always stationary. The stars are always moving, and the humans and the beasts and the jinn move sometimes and are still other times. Likewise, the impalpable body, light and darkness, it has movement and stillness. The night takes up a certain area of the earth, and after the sun rises, that darkness recedes and the light takes its place. The light will cover the area that the night covered. Allah is not attributed with being an impalpable body, nor with being a palpable body. Allah is not attributed with movement nor stillness. Any attribute of the creation is not permissible to attribute to Allah. So here the author is basically making it clear, using a lot of details. The sun and the moon and the stars, and the humans and the trees and the animals, these are called palpable bodies. You can grasp with your hand. You can grab with your hand. The wind, darkness, light, these things cannot be grasped with the hand. They cannot be grabbed. So these things are what? Impalpable bodies. Allah is the creator of palpable bodies, and Allah is the creator of impalpable bodies. So those things that apply to those creations do not apply to Allah. So for example, those palpable bodies, they're attributed with movement or stillness. They're not devoid of both. It's one or the other. So they're either moving all the time, or still all the time, or sometimes moving, sometimes still. Then the Shaykh, rahimahullah, proceeded to mention which of the creations are constantly still. So he said the 7 heavens and the Arsh. And then he mentioned some creations that are constantly moving, which is the stars. And then he mentioned creations that sometimes are moving and sometimes are still, and that's the humans, the jinn, the angels, the animals. So the author said, Allah has not attributed with movement nor stillness any attribute of the creations is not permissible to attribute to Allah. And this is the part that the Wahhabis don't understand. Them saying that Allah has an organ, them saying that Allah has a hand, that is literally attributing attributes of the creations to Allah. Because hands are only for creations. The Wahhabis saying that Allah goes up and down in the last third of the night, that is attributing attributes of creations to Allah, because only creations move up and down. Saying that Allah is sitting above the throne or hovering above the throne or located above the throne, that is attributing attributes of creations to Allah, because only something that is a creation is located in a place, because the place has a beginning. So whatever is inside of something that has a beginning is itself a creation. Page 269, this is the meaning of the verse, This verse proves that meaning. So everything that we just said about the palpable bodies, the impalpable bodies, the going up and down, the 6 directions, all of that we mentioned, all of that is taken from the ayah, Within those 3 words, we have this vast and ample meaning. The author said, this proves that meaning. This verse proves that meaning. Its terms are brief and its meaning is vast. The one who believes that Allah does not resemble the creations knows Allah. As for the one who believes what contradicts that, he does not know Allah. This verse clears Allah for being attributed with dwelling in the direction of above, and for being attributed with dwelling in the direction of below. Hence, the one who believes that Allah is dwelling in the direction of above, like the Wahhabis, they surely have likened Allah to the creations, and they do not know their Creator. Rather, they are ignorant of their Creator. So, because the Wahhabis, when you confront them, they say, oh, this is not like the creation. This is not attributing similarity to the creation. When you tell them, if you say that Allah is located above the throne, this is likening Allah to the creation, they say, no, this is not like us. They say, are you and the car the same? They really say that. They really say that. I have proof of that. Documented things that have proof of that. Where a Wahhabi, he would say, the Arsh is not similar to Allah. Allah is not similar to the Arsh, even though he says that Allah is there. And so I said, this is drawing similarity to Allah. He said, no, it's not. He said, are you and the car the same? And so here we see the misunderstanding that they have, is that they think similarity means that it has to be identical. Similarity does not mean identical. Similarity means that it shares an aspect that is the same. Like what? For example, me and the car. The car has a beginning, I have a beginning. That's similarity. The car has a shape, I have a shape. That's similarity. The car has a color, I have a color. That's similarity. The car has a limit, I have a limit. That's similarity. The car has length, width, and depth. That is similarity. The car is in need of fuel, and I'm in need of food and water. That's similarity. So you cannot say, are you and the car the same? No, we're not identical, but we're similar. What applies to the car applies to me. If I see a car, I know that it had a beginning. I know that it was put together. I know that it didn't put itself together. That applies to me as well. I didn't put myself together. I didn't make myself exist. I know that when I look at that car, that for sure it's going to come to an end, because that applies to me. So I know that applies to the cart as well. So the author said, this verse clears Allah for being attributed with dwelling in the direction of above and for being attributed with dwelling in the direction of below. Hence, the one who believes that Allah is dwelling in the direction of above, like the Wahhabis, they surely have likened Allah to the creations and they do not know their Creator. Rather, they are ignorant of their Creator. Had Allah been attributed with dwelling in the direction of above, He would have had many similars. And had He been dwelling in the direction of below, He would have had many similars. Allah created the 6 directions and made some of His creation be in the direction of above, like the throne and the garden tablet. Allah made some of His creation dwell in the direction of below, like the humans, the jinn, and the animals. The direction of above was made for the angels. The angels are plenty, and the majority of angels are around the throne. They are surrounding the throne, circling around the throne, just as we circle around the Kaaba in Mecca. He ordered them to do that, and just as He ordered the believers among the humans and jinn to circle around the Kaaba. So He ordered the angels that are there around the Arsh. He ordered them to go around the Kaaba, just as we circle around, He ordered them to go around the throne, just as we are ordered to go around the Kaaba in Mecca. He ordered them to do that just as He ordered the believers among the humans and jinn to circle around the Kaaba. As for Allah, He does not reside on the throne nor in the Kaaba. Rather, the angels were ordered to circle around the throne, and we have been ordered to circle around the Kaaba in Mecca. This throne, which is the biggest size that Allah created, Allah preserves it in its place, and had it not been for Allah preserving it with His power, it would have fallen to the bottom. This earth which carries us is held up by the power of Allah. Otherwise, the earth would not be stable even for a moment. It would have fallen down. Allah is clear from being attributed with dwelling in the direction of above and from dwelling in the direction of below. Allah is the one who preserves the throne in its place, and Allah is the one who keeps the angels that are carrying the throne in their places. He is the one who preserves them in their places. Otherwise, those angels would not have been settled there. Who keeps them in their places and prevents them from falling to the bottom? Had it not been that Allah made them stay there by His power, it is a ridiculous mind to believe that Allah is sitting on the throne. And because the one who says that Allah Ta'ala is sitting on the throne, he is basically saying that the angels are carrying Him. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Allah Ta'ala created the throne and then preserved it in that place, and so it did not plummet to the bottom. Those Wahhabis, their minds are silly. They believe that Allah, who created the throne, is sitting on the throne, and that those angels that are there are carrying the throne. What kind of ridiculousness of the mind is this? Furthermore, the Wahhabis mention certain verses and interpret them literally, and they do not interpret them as the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah interpret them. So beware of them. Some verses of the Book of Allah, it is not permissible to interpret them literally. Rather, those verses have a meaning other than the literal. Some of the verses, their outward meaning is that Allah is in the direction of above. And some verses, their outward is that Allah is in the direction of the earth. Yani, some verses of the Quran, a person who does not have the proper understanding, he might think from that, he might misunderstand from what he read that Allah is in the direction of above. And some other verses, the person who is ignorant, they might read them and they might misunderstand from that Allah is in the direction of the earth. So the one who looks at those ayat and looks at the surface of those ayat, he might mistakenly think that that's the meaning of those verses. But those verses don't mean that. one does not go by the outward of these verses, nor by the outward of the other verses. Rather, the outward of these verses, rather one goes by the verse, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Do not be deceived by their saying that Ar-Rahman وَعَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى means sitting on the throne. Do not believe them. The verse does not mean sitting, rather it means subjugates. It means Allah subjugates the throne. That is, Allah subjugates all things. Hence, one does not go by the outward of the verse, Ar-Rahman وَعَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى, nor by the outward of the verse, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. So it's an easy matter for us. The word istawa is one of those words in the Arabic language that has 15 different meanings. Among the meanings of the word istawa is qahara, subjugate, to subjugate. So the meaning of the ayah is Allah subjugates the arsh. This meaning goes with the language and it goes with other verses of the Quran, because among the names of Allah is Al-Qahhar, which is it's the way of indicating with that structure that it is, and it's like an intensifier, because one of the names of Allah is Al-Qahir. Al-Qahir, it means the subjugator. وَهُوَ الْقَاهِرُ فَوْقَ عِبَادِهِ, and it's one of the verses of the Quran. It means Allah is the subjugator over His creations. Yani He dominates His creations, He subjugates His creations. So that same exact meaning is found in the word istawa. So it lines up Islamically, religiously, and it lines up linguistically, because among the actual definitions of istawa is qahara. So why do the Wahhabis get mad when we say Ar-Rahman وَعَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى means Allah subjugated the throne? It's because they have the propensity for misguidance in their hearts, and because they want it to mean, they want the verse to mean that Allah is sitting on the throne, because they want to believe that Allah is located above the throne. Simple as that. Just like the Christians want to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and they want to believe that there's a Trinity, but there's no such thing. There's no evidence for it. The mind rejects it, and there is no revelation that proves it. Because what they have is not revelation. What they have is man-made. So do not go by the outward of the verse Ar-Rahman وَعَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى, nor by the outward of the verse فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. So again, taking the verse Ar-Rahman وَعَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى literally, and it would lead to contradictions in the Quran if you took the other verses of the Quran literally. And that's another thing that these Wahhabis do, that they're misguided about, is that they pick and choose which verses of the Quran they take literally and which of them they do not take literally. When that's arbitrary, that's whimsical, that is just based on moods and desires. There is nothing substantial or fundamental about it. It's just them making stuff up. But for Ahlul Sunnah, we interpret the Quran and we take the proper approach to interpreting the Quran based on the fundamentals and the rules that were set and established by the Prophet ﷺ himself. So here's an example of that. So the Wahhabis, they say you have to take the Quran literally and you cannot give it any alternative interpretation, ta'weel. So we say, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. If they were to take it literally, they would say, wherever you turn, there is Allah. So according to the Wahhabis' approach to understanding the Quran, they say that Allah is everywhere. if they were to take that approach. To this ayah, they would have to say that Allah is everywhere. But they hate that. They don't like that. So for this ayah, they say, oh no, it doesn't mean that. Don't take it literally. The author said, this second verse, its outward is that Allah is surrounding the universe, that if the person prays to any direction, he would be facing the being of Allah, the reality of Allah. The verse is not interpreted with that apparent meaning. Rather, the verse has another meaning. It means there is the Qibla. That is any direction that you face while you are riding on the back of an animal, praying the recommended prayer. For example, the one riding the horse prays the obligatory prayer on the floor. Then he rides his horse and he faces any of the directions while traveling. It is permissible for him to pray the recommended prayer, riding the horse, facing towards the direction he is traveling in. As for the obligatory prayer, he prays it facing the Kaaba. I advise you to beware of the Wahhabis. So that judgment of praying, it does not, praying on the animal, it does not apply to riding a car, it does not apply to riding a train, it does not apply to an airplane, it does not apply to a boat. It only applies to riding an animal, facing any direction, and the optional recommended prayer, the sunnah prayer. It does not apply to the obligatory prayer. So if you want to pray a sunnah prayer while you're riding an animal, and you don't want to get off and face the Qibla and say Allahu Akbar and do the movements of the prayer while standing, you just do that while on the animal. And anywhere that you face, it'll be valid, it'll be the Qibla. So that's the meaning of the ayah, فَإِنَّمَا تُوَلُّوا فَتَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. And it doesn't mean wherever you turn, there is Allah, according to the Wahhabis' understanding and their approach to it. I advise you to beware of the Wahhabis. The Wahhabis do not know Allah. They say Allah is sitting on the throne, and they say He has organs and that He goes up and down. They likened Him to His creations. Furthermore, they judge the believers as non-Muslims for no reason. To them, whoever says, "O Muhammad," exits from Islam. To them, it is permissible to kill him. The one who says, "O Messenger of Allah," to them is a non-Muslim. And the one who visits the grave of a wali or a prophet so that Allah grants him blessings, to them is a non-Muslim. The one who hangs something that has Quran written on it for protection around his neck, to them is a non-Muslim. The one who celebrates the Mawlid, to them is a non-Muslim. So all these things, the Wahhabis, they judge the Muslims as kafirs for doing these things. So we're going to talk about each one of them one by one. The first is saying, "O Muhammad." So basically, the Muslim, he only worships Allah. He does not worship a creation. And sometimes the Muslim might say, "O Muhammad," yani calling out to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that Muslim knows that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam can make supplication for him and ask Allah to relieve him. And since the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has such a high status, because he is accepted by Allah, that Muslim who says, "O Muhammad," he hopes that by doing that, that whatever situation that he's in, or whatever hardship that he's in, that the Prophet ﷺ would make supplication for that hardship to be resolved or relieved, and so that the Prophet ﷺ would ask Allah to relieve that Muslim, and so that Muslim is hopeful that he'll receive that help because the Prophet ﷺ asked for him on his behalf. So just saying, "O Muhammad" by itself, that by itself is not defined as worship. So the Wahhabis, they cannot accuse a Muslim of shirk just because he said, "Oh Muhammad," because the Muslim, he does not worship other than Allah. So a big root for the misunderstanding and the misguidance of the Wahhabis in this matter is that they don't understand what worship means. They think worship means just asking for help. They think worship means just calling out. They think worship means just fearing someone. They think worship means just seeking help or relying upon. But those things by themselves are not worship. Calling on someone, that would be worship if the person called on them with the ultimate humbleness and submission. Asking someone for help, it would be worship if the person added to that the ultimate humbleness and submission. But if they just ask them for something knowing that they're a creation, knowing that they don't create anything, that's not worship. Seeking help from them, knowing that they're a creation, that they don't create help, that does not mean worship. The second thing that they mention is the one who visits the grave of a wali or a prophet. Now let's say that let's say there was a place, right? A trustworthy Muslim, someone that you trust. They told you, if you go to such and such place, you will find a well of water, and if you drink from that water, your cancer will be cured. And whenever you need anything, if you go there and you drink from that water, you'll have, let's say, your sickness will be cured and you'll become wealthy, etc. Or what you want to happen will occur. Yani if you wanted, let's say, children, if you wanted to get married, if you drink from that water, from the blessings of that water, it will happen. You going to that water and drinking from it, seeking those blessings and hoping that because you drank from that water, Allah Ta'ala will grant you those things, that's not worshiping that water. That's not worshiping the well. It's simply going to the place that you know that there's blessings and seeking the blessings from there. Seeking the blessings. And so we are ordered in the Quran to go to the Prophet ﷺ and seek blessings from him in the Quran. And that is the case whether they're alive or dead, because the Prophet ﷺ, he still has the same status, yani whether they're alive or dead. And he's the best of the creation, whether they're alive or dead. And as you know, the prophets, they're alive in their graves praying. And as you know, the prophets, their bodies, they do not decompose. And as you know, the prophets, for Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, sometimes he's shown some of the good deeds of this nation, and when he sees that, he says, Alhamdulillah. And sometimes he's shown the bad deeds of this nation, and he'll make supplication for that person.
When you mentioned the stars are
Constantly moving. It means they don't stop moving. Like you could say an oscillation or like a circular motion, but they're always moving. Either like this, side to side, or like this. They're non-stop moving. The North Star moves. It just goes around in a circle. Yeah, the world moves in a circle. Yeah, it doesn't mean that they move long distances back and forth. It just means that they're moving all the time. They never stop moving. Like right now, you're still. Right? You're not moving your hand, you're not shaking, and then you walk and stuff like that, and you stay still. So the stars are always moving. So the Muslim knows that there are places that there's blessings in those places, like the grave of the Prophet ﷺ and like the grave of the pious Muslims. Because why? Because if there is a wali of Allah that dies and he's buried in that place, since he is a wali, since he is accepted by Allah, what is the promise that the pious Muslim gets? أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. What does that mean? That means that those pious Muslims, when they're in the grave, what are they going to be getting? They're going to be getting the promise that Allah guaranteed, that means they're going to get reward. They're going to get their graves expanded. They're going to have the fragrance of paradise. They're going to have the light shining like the light of the full moon. They're going to have greenery in the grave. They're going to have their good deeds keeping them company in the grave. They're going to have all these things that are blessings and mercies descending upon their grave, in their grave. So it's a place of blessings. And so the Muslim that's alive, he wants to go to that place where there's blessings constantly coming down, so that when that Muslim goes to that place and he says, "Oh Allah, grant me this. Oh Allah, grant me that. Oh Allah, forgive me. Oh Allah, make me die as a perfect Muslim," because of the blessings of that place, that Muslim hopes that his supplication will be answered. So that's not worshiping the grave. The Muslim's not going there to worship the person that's inside of the grave. The Muslim is going there because he knows that there's blessings descending on that place. As for the one who hangs something that has Quran written on it for protection around his neck, this is something that the companions did. And it's actually ironic that Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is the first one to say that it's forbidden to wear the hijaz, to wear a piece of paper that has verses of the Quran or God's name or dua around your neck. He's the first person to say that it's forbidden. And that's something that the companions did. And his whole movement is based on claiming that he follows the Salaf. And they consider that the person who does that, and he is a non-Muslim. They consider that the person who does put that around their neck as a non-Muslim. And they say the one who celebrates the Mawlid is a non-Muslim, na'udhu billah, which is also something that it shows that they are misguided. Why? Because the majority of the Muslims, they celebrate Mawlid. And what did the Prophet ﷺ say? He said all of them would be in hellfire except for one, and that is the vast majority. The author said, the author said, nowadays they have lightened their stance about the Mawlid. Even since the time of this lesson, which was a long time ago, they still have lightened their stance on the Mawlid. They didn't go out of their way to say such ugly words as they used to. They said, they used to say that the one who does the Mawlid is a non-Muslim, and that the one who slaughters for the Mawlid and feeds the people is more forbidden than the pig meat. So they used to say that if a Muslim celebrated the Mawlid and that Muslim, he slaughtered a sheep so that he could feed the people, they would say that that meat that was slaughtered for the Mawlid is more haram than pig meat. And so they used to say that a lot and there was a backlash from the people, so they stopped saying it. But if you recall, maybe like a year or so ago, one of those Wahhabis, the Wahhabis don't claim him, and I don't know if he himself claims to be a Wahhabi, but he does have Wahhabi beliefs. But the point is that he said a similar ugly statement. He said the one who celebrates the Mawlid is more haram than fornicating with his own mother. And he also said that statement about the pig meat. Yeah. So, but he got a lot of backlash for that. So the Wahhabis, they used to say that. Now, since the people have hated them for this saying of theirs, they have lightened their stance. As for the one who says, "O Muhammad," they judge him as a kafir. In the days of the Prophet ﷺ, the people used to say, "O Muhammad." And after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to say, "O Muhammad." Even Abdullah, the son of Umar, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, his foot got hit with some paralysis, and it was said to him, "Mention the most beloved person to you." And he said, "O Muhammad," and his foot was cured instantly. He is from the companions, and the Prophet ﷺ loved him, and said about him that he is a righteous Muslim. Abdullah, the son of Umar, said, "O Muhammad," and nobody judged him as a non-Muslim. These Wahhabis are damned. They judge as a kafir the one who says, "O Muhammad," and in reality the Wahhabis are the non-Muslims. So this is an explicit proof for us. Abdullah, the son of Umar, he is an undisputed righteous Muslim. And he is the son of our Master Umar. And he was witness, and he lived some of his Islam with the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ called Abdullah, the son of Umar, a salih man, a righteous man. So this righteous man who was judged as righteous by the Prophet ﷺ, who is the son of our Master Umar, one time he was sitting with some people and his leg became paralyzed. And so one of the people there told him, "Mention the most beloved person to you." And so Abdullah, the son of Umar, he said, "Ya Muhammad," and immediately his leg became unparalyzed. Immediately he was cured. And no one amongst the companions that were still alive said to him, "You worship the Prophet ﷺ," and none of them called him a mushrik, and none of them said, "You have blasphemed." These Wahhabis are damned. They judge as a kafir the one who says, "O Muhammad," and in reality the Wahhabis are the non-Muslims. The religion of the Wahhabis is new. 250 years ago they appeared in a place that is about 1,000 kilometers away from Mecca. And that's at the time that this lesson was given. Now it's been more than that. More than 250 years. The so-called Brotherhood Party, their religion is new. They appeared 60 years ago in Egypt. Those people, the so-called Muslim Brotherhood, they say that if you live in a country that has a secular law, the man-made law, and you don't rebel against them, and they start a revolution against them, that you become a kafir too. Na'udhu billah. And they for sure are wrong, and they for sure have many misguided things. Among the misguided things that they have is that they misinterpret the verses of the Quran. They give it meanings that are ugly meanings that are not befitting to Allah. One of their famous imams and leaders called himself Sayyid Qutb. He wrote a book, supposedly a tafsir, and he said many blasphemous things. Among the blasphemous things that he says is he calls Allah the creating feather. Yeah, a'udhu billah. He says a lot of ugly things. A'udhu billah. But that's the so-called Muslim Brotherhood. And also Hizb al-Tahrir. Likewise, their creed is invalid. Their religion appeared 60 years ago too. They say that the human is the one who creates his deeds that he does with his will. If he walks, they say he creates his walking. And if he looks at something, they say he creates that looking. And if he talks, they say he creates his speech. And if he thinks about something, they say he creates those thoughts. When we Muslims, we say, La ilaha illallah. Only Allah creates. So anyone who claims that the human being creates his own speech, creates his own actions, and that person is saying that there's more than one God, which is blasphemy, of course. Ahlul Sunnah say that Allah creates everything, the entities and the actions, the movements of the people, their circumstances, their glances, their thoughts. Allah creates all of them. This is the creed of Ahlul Sunnah, the ones who are in compliance with the Quran and the Hadith. This is what we teach you, and what our association teaches you is what the companions were on and those that came after them until our days. Go to Turkey, Morocco, Algeria, Pakistan, India, Africa, Turkey, all of them. Their scholars say, just as I am telling you, we do not teach a new religion. Rather, we teach what was conveyed by the Prophet ﷺ and what he taught to his companions. May Allah bless you. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. So that concludes lesson 53. Inshallah, we'll continue next week with lesson 54. It's the explanation of the hadith. إِنَّ اللَّهَ حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ عُقُوقَ الْأُمَّهَاتِ, which means Allah Ta'ala made forbidden upon you severely harming the Muslim mothers. So if there are no questions, we'll conclude. طيب نهلل لا إله إلا الله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.